The night had been long, the kind that seemed to hang heavy in the air. The diner sat on the edge of Highway 9, a flickering neon sign humming against the silence of the road. Inside, Clara wiped down the counter, half listening to the soft country song on the old radio. The smell of coffee and fried eggs clung to everything, the kind of comfort people found when life had taken too much out of them. Around midnight, the door creaked open. A man walked in, tall, rugged, leather jacket soaked from the rain. His beard was rough, his hands calloused, and his eyes carried that quiet weight people get from too many miles on the road. He sat in the corner booth, ordered black coffee, and said only, "Keep the change." Clara gave a polite nod. "Rough night." He shrugged. "Just long." There was something about him, not dangerous, but steady, like the kind of man who'd seen too much and didn't talk about it. 10 minutes later, the sound of police sirens shattered the stillness. 2 patrol cars screeched to a stop right outside the diner. The door flew open, and 3 officers stepped in, rain dripping off their jackets. The lead cop, Sergeant Willis, scanned the room until his gaze landed on the biker. "You?" Hands where I can see them. The biker didn't move. "Evening, officers." "Something wrong?" Willis's jaw tightened. "Don't play smart with me. We got a call about a biker matching your description, assault on a gas station clerk." Clara frowned. "He's been here for half an hour." Willis ignored her. "Stand up now?" The biker sighed, placing his hands on the table. "You got the wrong guy." Willis yanked him up by the collar and shoved him against the counter. Cups rattled, coffee spilled, and Clara froze for a split second. Then her instincts kicked in. "Stop," she shouted, stepping between them. He didn't do anything. Willis glared. "Ma'am, this is police business. Back away." She didn't move. "You're making a mistake. He's been here the whole time." The biker's jaw flexed, eyes cold. "She's telling the truth." Willis sneered. "Oh, I bet she is. You bikers always have someone covering for you." The diner went silent, the tension thick enough to choke on. Clara's hands trembled, but she didn't back down. "You can't just walk in and throw people around like that." Willis turned on her, his voice sharp. "Lady, if you don't step aside, you'll be spending the night in jail too." Something in her snapped. "Then make room for 2 cells, because I'm not moving." For a second, even the rain outside seemed to stop. The biker's eyes flicked toward her, not in surprise, but in something else. Respect. Finally, one of the younger officers hesitated. "Sarge, I think she's right." Dispatch said the suspect had a red bike. "His is black." Willis scowled, but stepped back reluctantly. "Fine. Guess you got lucky tonight." He shoved his way out the door, muttering something under his breath. The other 2 followed, leaving only the sound of the rain again. Clara exhaled hard. "You okay?" The biker straightened his jacket. "I've had worse." "You shouldn't have to," she said softly. He studied her for a long moment, the corner of his mouth lifting just slightly. "Most people don't step in when badges are flashing." "I'm not most people," she said, half smiling. He chuckled. "Yeah, I can see that." He paid his bill, left a $100 tip, and disappeared into the rain. Clara figured that was the end of it. But the next morning, when she pulled into the parking lot, she nearly dropped her keys. 2 black trucks were parked outside the diner, engines idling. Men in black jackets stood by the door, tall, broad, tattooed, each one wearing the same emblem on their chest, a skull surrounded by wings and gears. Her stomach flipped. As she stepped closer, one of them opened the door for her. "Miss Clara, why ya?" He smiled faintly. "Boss sent us." Inside, the diner was different. New. Overnight, every cracked booth had been reupholstered. The floors had been polished, the lights replaced, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. "What in the world?" she whispered. A familiar rumble filled the parking lot. The biker from last night stepped off his motorcycle, leather jacket gleaming under the morning sun. Clara blinked. "You?" He grinned. "Me? What is all this?" He walked in, glancing around at the work being done. "My way of saying thank you." "Thank you," she repeated. "For what?" "I just stood up when no one else would," he said, cutting her off gently. "People don't usually do that for someone like me." Clara shook her head. "You didn't have to do all this. I was just doing what's right," he said. "Yeah, that's what makes it rare." He extended his hand. "Name's Ryder, president of the Iron Hawks, MC." Her eyes widened. "MC? You mean motorcycle club?" "Not the kind you see in the movies," he said, smiling. We run charity rides, veterans programs, food drives. But cops still see leather and think trouble. She looked around the diner again. The shine, the precision, the quiet efficiency of the men working. You did all this in one night. He shrugged. Had a few friends who owed me favors. She stared at him. You have no idea what this place means to me. He smiled, a small warmth in his eyes. I think I do. Before he left, he nodded to one of his men. The biker stepped forward, placing an envelope on the counter. Inside was a card with the Iron Hawks emblem and a single line beneath it. If you ever need us, call this number. We protect our own. Clara looked up, tears stinging her eyes. Why me? Ryder smirked. Because last night, you were one of us. The next time the police came into her diner, they didn't bark orders. They asked politely. And outside, the town learned that the rumble of motorcycles wasn't a warning anymore. It was a promise that kindness still had muscle and justice could ride on two wheels. The next morning, the air around the diner felt strange, as if the whole town had heard the story before Clara had even opened her eyes. She arrived early, but there were already people standing outside. Two bikers leaning against their Harleys, engines still ticking warm. They nodded when she passed. No words, just that same silent respect she remembered from the night before. Inside, everything looked the same, until she saw the envelope on the counter. No name, just a symbol stamped in black wax, a hawk's head with wings spread wide. She peeled it open. Inside was a note written in careful block letters. Breakfast on us. Step outside. Before she could even process it, the low thunder of engines rolled through the parking lot. Dozens of bikes, chrome gleaming under the morning sun. Every one of them carried the Iron Hawks emblem. Ryder was at the front, sunglasses on, calm as ever. He parked and walked straight to the door, pushing it open with that same quiet authority that made the room still. You open for business, boss? He asked. Clara blinked. Boss? He grinned. You're the one running this place now, aren't you? Before she could answer, the rest of the Hawks began unloading crates from a black truck. Fresh produce. New kitchen equipment. Boxes stamped, donated by Iron Hawks MC. What is all this? She breathed. Ryder shrugged. Community outreach. You gave us a reason to start it again. Thought we'd kick it off right here. She just stood there, stunned, as his men replaced the old fryer, fixed the flickering sign, and even repainted the diner's name, Clara's Roadhouse. I can't accept this, she said finally. Ryder looked at her, steady. You already did when you stood up last night. The doorbell jingled again. Two uniformed officers stepped in, not the ones from the night before. They looked nervous. Ma'am, one began. On behalf of the department, we wanted to apologize for Sergeant Willis's conduct. He's been suspended pending review. Clara blinked. Suspended. Ryder's mouth curved slightly. Actions have consequences. The cops nodded awkwardly and left. When the door closed, Clara turned to him. You did that, didn't you? He didn't deny it. We made a few calls. Turns out, some of our friends wear badges too. The right kind. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You really don't do things halfway. He grinned. Halfway's for people who don't finish what they start. For the rest of the morning, the diner buzzed with life. Locals came in just to see what the noise was about. Truckers, bikers, families, everyone ate side by side. No fear, no tension, just laughter and coffee refills. When things finally slowed down, Clara poured Ryder a cup and sat across from him. So, she said, what happens when all this attention dies down? He leaned back, studying her. Then you keep doing what you've always done. Serve people, treat them right, and stand up when it counts. We'll make sure no one forgets. You talk like this diner means something more than breakfast. It does, he said simply. It's proof that decency still exists. Before leaving, he set a small metal pin on the counter, the Iron Hawks emblem, but this one was gold. What's this? She asked. He smiled. Honor patch. Goes to people who've earned respect the hard way. Your family now, Clara. When the last bike pulled out of the lot, the air filled with the rumble of engines fading into the horizon. People inside the diner pressed against the windows, watching, whispering. Later that night, after closing, Clara locked the doors and sat at the counter, turning the golden pin over in her hand. She had no idea that one act of courage would ripple this far, that by standing between a badge and a stranger, she'd become part of something bigger than herself. Outside, The wind carried the faint echo of motorcycles somewhere down the highway. Not loud, just enough to make her smile. Because now she knew, whenever the road went dark, the Iron Hawks would be out there, engines humming, watching over the people who still believed that doing the right thing was worth the fight. The storm had barely faded when Clara unlocked the diner the next morning. The sign outside still flickered, the smell of rain still clung to the air, and yet, something about the silence felt different. Heavy, expectant. She didn't notice the black motorcycle parked across the lot until the engine roared to life. Then he appeared, Ryder. Same jacket, same calm stare, but this time there was no storm clinging to him. Only purpose. Morning, she said softly. Morning, he replied, setting his helmet on the counter. Heard the place held strong last night. Clara smiled nervously. If by strong you mean I barely slept because half the county was talking about your crew fixing up my diner. Yeah, strong. Ryder chuckled low. Word travels fast. Before she could answer, the door opened, not to another biker, but to a man in a suit. He wasn't local. His shoes were too clean. He handed her an envelope with a polite nod. For you, Miss Clara. Then he was gone. She tore it open, frowning. Inside was a single sheet of thick paper embossed with a seal, the Iron Hawks Foundation. She blinked. Ryder, what is this? He leaned back, arms crossed. Guess I should have warned you. The letter read, by unanimous vote, the Iron Hawks Motorcycle Club has appointed Clara Jennings as the Director of Community Outreach, effective immediately. The diner located at Highway 9 will serve as our first community hub. Clara's hands trembled. Director? Community hub? Ryder, what are you doing? He grinned. You said people needed a place to feel safe, somewhere that wasn't just for us or them. So we're building it. Starting here. I never said I could run something like that, she protested. Yeah, he said, taking a slow sip of coffee. But you already are. Before she could respond, engines rumbled outside, dozens of them. The Iron Hawks had returned, this time not just with tools or muscle. They carried boxes, crates, and banners with bold white letters. Hawks Haven. Free meals, free repairs, free second chances. The whole parking lot filled with people. Bikers unloading supplies. Townsfolk watching from across the street. Reporters setting up cameras. It looked less like a diner and more like a revolution starting quietly in the rain. Ryder watched the scene unfold, then turned to Clara. You stood up to a badge for someone who didn't deserve the hate. That kind of spine? That's leadership. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I'm a waitress, Ryder. He smiled faintly. Not anymore. The next few hours were a blur, volunteers organizing, people bringing donations, a local mechanic offering to teach car repairs to at-risk kids. The diner's sign was repainted in bright red letters. Hawks Haven. When the last camera crew left, Clara finally sat down, exhausted. Ryder slid into the booth across from her. Told you we'd repay the favor. She looked around, tears threatening. You turned my diner into a community center overnight. Correction, he said, smirking. You did. We just brought the horsepower. Clara laughed, shaking her head. You make it sound easy. Ryder's expression softened. It's not. The world doesn't fix itself. But once in a while, someone does the right thing at the right time, and that's enough to start something bigger. The bell over the door jingled. A young man in a worn jacket stepped inside, eyes nervous. Is this the place that helps people? Clara hesitated, then smiled. Yeah, it is. Ryder stood, clapped a hand on the kid's shoulder, and said, You're home, brother. That night, when the last of the bikers rolled out and the neon lights glowed against the wet pavement, Clara stood in the doorway, the Golden Hawk pin still clipped to her apron. She whispered to herself, all this from one act of standing up. From that day forward, the sound of motorcycles outside her diner didn't mean trouble. It meant protection. And the woman who once just poured coffee and wiped counters became the heart of a movement that reminded the whole town what courage looked like. Quiet, human, and louder than the roar of any engine on the open road. Weeks turned into months, and Hawks Haven became something no one could have predicted. What started as a small roadside diner was now the beating heart of an entire community. Trucks stopped not just for food, but to donate. Families in need came through the doors and left with meals, new clothes, and job leads. Every night the parking lot filled with motorcycles, laughter, and the deep, rumbling sound of purpose. Clara barely recognized her life anymore. She still wore her apron, but it wasn't just for pouring coffee now. She ran schedules, signed shipments, managed volunteers. People called her Miss Clara with respect in their voices. And though she smiled every time, there was always a part of her that wondered when the moment would come, the one that reminded her how fragile peace could be. It came on a Friday night. The diner was packed. Locals, bikers, travelers, everyone eating together, music humming from an old jukebox in the corner. Clara was behind the counter when the door slammed open. A man staggered in, bruised, bleeding from a cut across his forehead. His denim jacket was torn, his voice hoarse. "They're coming," he gasped. Ryder was on his feet instantly. "Who?" The man looked around wildly. "The Black Vultures. They're headed this way," said the Hawks stole their territory. The whole diner went still. The Black Vultures weren't just a gang, they were chaos on wheels. Where the Iron Hawks protected, the Vultures destroyed. Ryder's jaw tightened. "Get him patched up," he told Clara quietly. Then to the room. Everyone not patched in out. Now, people scrambled to their cars. The bikers stood firm. Engines began to growl outside. Not Hawks, but the Vultures, their sound sharper, meaner, wrong. Clara's pulse raced. "Ryder, call the police." He shook his head. "They'll get here too late." Then, through the window, headlights flared. A dozen bikes lined up along the highway, blocking the road. The Vultures had come. Their leader stepped forward, a thin man with a scar that cut down his cheek like lightning. "You Hawks think you can play saints," he sneered. "Setting up food banks and hiding behind diners? You forgot what the road really is." Ryder stepped outside, calm but cold. "The road belongs to whoever respects it. You don't." The man laughed. "Respect? You sound like a preacher. How about we teach your little waitress what the road takes instead?" Before the words even finished leaving his mouth, Ryder moved. One swift punch sent the man reeling backward. The Vultures roared and surged forward, but the Hawks were ready. Engines screamed, fists flew, the sound of metal on pavement filled the air. The whole street turned into chaos. Clara ducked behind the counter, heart hammering, until a bottle crashed through the window and flames erupted along the wall. "No, no, no," she cried, grabbing the fire extinguisher. She ran toward the blaze, choking on smoke. Outside, Ryder saw her and cursed. He broke through the fight, grabbed a Vulture trying to follow her inside, and slammed him against the wall. "You touch her, you don't breathe again," he snarled. The Hawks pushed the Vultures back, forcing them toward their bikes. Within minutes, the enemy retreated, disappearing into the dark. The highway fell silent again, broken only by the hiss of the fire being put out. Clara coughed, covered in soot, the extinguisher still in her hands. "Is it over?" Ryder looked around at his men, bruised but standing. "Yeah," he said quietly. "It's over." She stared at the scorched wall where the flames had been. They were going to burn it down. Everything. Ryder stepped closer. "Let him try again. The Hawks don't fall easy." She turned to him, voice trembling. "You could have left. You could have stayed safe." He met her eyes. "So could you, the first night we met. Guess neither of us is built that way." The next morning, the news spread fast. Biker gang war stopped by woman and her diner staff. Reporters called Hawks Haven a fortress of hope. The mayor showed up to shake Clara's hand. Donations poured in from all over the state. But the moment that stayed with her wasn't the praise. It was that quiet evening after, when the parking lot was empty except for one bike. Ryder leaned against it, his knuckles still scraped, his jacket torn. He looked at the diner, smoke-stained, battered, but standing, and smiled. "You did good, Clara," he said softly. She smiled back. "We did good." He handed her a keychain, a tiny silver hawk with its wings spread. "This goes on your keys. Means the road's got your back." She held it tight. "And if I ever need help again?" He grinned, starting his engine. "Just listen for the roar." As he rode off into the night, the rumble of his bike faded into the horizon, steady, strong, and endless. From then on, whenever the wind carried that deep, familiar sound across the highway, Clara didn't feel fear anymore. She felt protected, because somewhere out there, the Iron Hawks were still riding, guarding the woman who once stood up for a stranger and ended up changing the meaning of the road forever.